Hey everybody, thanks for joining us on another week of the Enchanted Inkwell. I'm Michael,
I'm Britt.
And I'm Blake.
and this week we're going to talk about how we've each built up our collections over the last couple months, and whatever else comes up. Yeah, I guess I'll kick it off.
Yeah.
Just as far as my background a little bit was I used to play Magic, but when I did that, I was fresh out of school, didn't have a lot of money, so the only way I could play was to play limited. So I played Friday Night Magic, paid $10 a week, and I just drafted. And those were my cards, and that was my collection. I tried to do that for this approach for Lorcana, but I just didn't find the limited formats that engaging. And it seemed like a lot of the stores stopped running limited after the first couple weeks. They would do set release sealed, and then they would just then be like, okay, there was nowhere to find a week of draft, like weekly drafts or anything like that.
I think one of the reasons for that, and this kind of goes through the history of Lorcana, right, is the fact that like packs, especially on LGS release,
Yeah.
are very limited. And I think we still see the impact of that, right? That when they're trying to use prize packs, they're trying to hold limited events, they just don't have that access to that many boxes of product for the LGS release. And I think that limits their ability to have limited events. So I would say that that's probably a reason why you don't see a whole lot of draft.
Yeah, and I think that you're right in that sense that the LGS product scarcity makes it kind of tough for people to hold limited, because even we see now after the release, stores barely have packs to sell. They're out of packs. They can't prize packs, whatever it may be. There's just not enough to go around, and so that's probably a big reason why those events don't happen, or stores aren't hosting all those events.
Right. Well, and it came up in our 3v3s. Like, we didn't talk about this specifically, because we're not trying to throw shade on that store specifically, but when we found out that pricing, they didn't have enough of the packs alone or the boxes alone to compensate for the pricing that they had effectively promised. They said, oh no,
In fact, the advertised pricing.
the advertised. So they switched it off to store credit, which is just not anywhere near the same as saying, hey, winner or second place is going to get a box of Shimmering Skies. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we don't even have a box of Shimmering Skies to give out. So that was part of why we had so bad feels. But again, it goes back to what we were talking about, like the limited availability of product in stores when it comes to LGS release, I think is really holding these stores back from being able to provide those events.
Hopefully that gets better down the road, and we see improvements there. But luckily, I now have a well-paying job, and I don't need to necessarily rely on a only gaming budget of $10 a week. So I've resorted to the strategy recently, or with this game, that I will buy a minimum of 4 boxes. If I can get them, I will buy a minimum of 4 boxes, and I will open them and try to pull an enchanted. If I don't get an enchanted, I've told myself, and this is only to curb my own spending and my own addictive, compulsive habits, that if I don't open the enchanted in the first 4 boxes, I'm allowed to buy more boxes until I open an enchanted. And that is how I build my collection for a set now.
How generous with the permission.
So
no, that's good. Yeah.
So with 4 boxes specifically, are we talking about, are you trying to get a sealed case specifically?
So originally, yes. But with Ursula's return, we saw a trend that sealed cases were not getting an enchanted. People were getting 2 enchanteds in a box sometimes. And so I think that because, pack mapping hasn't been discovered yet, and we're not really sure how those boxes are going, I think the goal is to get a sealed case, because for some reason that ease of mind, or, the idea, the fallacy that, okay, that means the average, I'll get one. But again, because of product scarcity, I can't always guarantee that it's going to be a sealed case. So the first 4 boxes are just, 4 boxes. That's the allotted number that in a case that I've arbitrarily designated that I'm allowed to spend.
And what is the specific goal to get that to an enchanted?
I'm trying in the 4 boxes to get an enchanted, and at the time in previous sets, it was okay. I'm not super attached to certain enchanteds. Like there are ones that I really want, but for the most part, I'm not huge on, because I don't know that I'm ever going to own every single enchanted. So there's the completionist part of me again has to fight that and say, well, if you're not going to be able to complete it, then like let's just write that off. And so the idea is, okay, I can get an enchanted, then I can go trade this enchanted to the people who really want the enchanted, and they can fill in the cards that I'm missing. This set, I've pivoted to your strategy, which I guess is a good way for you to take over and elaborate a little bit on what you do.
Well, I only actually pivoted to that strategy for this set as well, but I'm actually more curious. First of all, we'll get to how I collect things, but I'm actually more curious what Britt's approach is actually.
Buy everything. No, just kidding.
It's a good approach.
It has its advantages. So my approach to collecting was buy what you could get, because it was a time where it wasn't super well stocked still. And then Inklands was my first drop. And it was sort of the buy a couple of boxes and then fill in singles as you need to. But our local area is a little weird when it comes to Lorcana versus other TCGs. And some of our friends who work in LGSs have called Lorcana a weird community, because they're like, you don't sell anything to the stores. Like, y'all just open stuff and you keep it, whether or not it's the stuff you need. We have a really robust community that like trades internally a lot. I think that contributes to it. But when you're talking about like having to source singles, we have to go online. There's not a lot of stores that we can go into that have like a really robust singles collection. So it's kind of a mix of that. But I love cracking packs, but whiffing on a few boxes with no enchanteds, because it's such a spoiled outlook. I know it's so spoiled, but I want one of those packs in that box to have an enchanted. And I've done well on a few, but more often than not, I have had to learn the hard way that pulling sealed is fun, but it's not necessarily like the money way to chase this hobby. Financially, it's maybe it's its own kind of thing. So now I have recently tried to adopt the singles approach with varying degrees of success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a side effect of like Lorcana finance in general or whatever, is that we found that the EV of opening a box is just not that great right now. And I mean, we can get into the reasons of why at another time, because I think that we could fill hours and hours of content with that. But there's just something to the thrill of opening packs that like nothing else can kind of satisfy. And so I fall into that trap, and that's why I keep doing it. I want to open that box. I want to see that peak of the enchanted behind that pack. But is it the most fiscally responsible way to build your collection, or is it the best way on a budget?
A TCG player in general. No, yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's fair. I guess you don't get into TCGs to make money, right?
Well, but no, there are alternative formats. Like the popper version of Lorcana is, I think, called Porcana, right?
Nah, that's news to me.
Did you know? Oh, okay, somebody else had called it Porcana. I'm not being like classist about it, but yeah. So being able to be accessible at like multiple price points are super important when you're talking about this game being accessible in general, and that's what they want, right? They want it to be inclusive. They want it to be for everybody.
There's two sides of that coin, right? You obviously want the cards to be accessible, and early on with Lorcana, you didn't have that accessibility. I remember when Lorcana was coming out, the hype that was surrounded by it. And again, full disclosure, I only started in set 3, but I remember having a conversation with one of my old Magic buddies talking about, are we going to buy a couple of cases of this? Like, are we pre-ordering this just in case? And we opted not to for whatever reason. I don't remember specifically. Just because we didn't even know the game, it was like, okay, yeah, the concept is cool. We'd obviously enjoy, casually getting into it, but was it worth the investment? I think and I think any collectible card game or collectible experience is always going to have that attached to it, right? There is some sort of value, and Michael was talking about this, it is not the most conducive for you to go to a retail store, drop $150 on a booster box, or hopefully you are in an area where it's only going to cost you like $120. But you're still spending $120 with the possibility of opening $40 worth of value as far as like resale value. And that can be, huge feels bad situation. But also at the same time, those sort of really suppressed values are creating a market where it is extremely accessible for players in general, not necessarily the competitive level, because I think you see that there are certain cards, Sad Beast, that rise to a certain level and don't seem to come down because they are as good as they're going to be. But for the most part, the majority of cards are actually very cheap, so they end up being very accessible. But I don't know if that, and this is a little off topic, but I don't know if that ends up being a really conducive aspect to the game, because I think there is a level of collectability that needs to be in the game, which I thought they really nailed with Enchanteds, right? I thought it was very obvious that, hey, these Enchanted cards are for the collectors and everything else is kind of for the player, from that perspective. But I don't know, we're in set 5. We've already sort of seen the Enchanteds bottom out from a value perspective. From a collector perspective, that's excellent, right? So now if you wanted to get that Enchanted set, you could get that Enchanted set for a much deeper discount than you could, especially for the first few chapters. But I think we're still trying to find the balance, right? Like there were so much supply issues with chapter 1. And I think a lot of that was that collector aspect, right? You had a lot of people holding on to product because it was going to be rare and it was going to be the first. And I think a lot of people think that for whatever reason, this game or any game will mirror Magic the Gathering, but I don't think that that's the case. And I don't think that can be the case, right? Magic the Gathering at its when it came out was such a unicorn that people didn't know. So many people thought, like, why would I ever spend any money on this? It's not going to last, right? So nobody ever expected it to last. It's the fact that Magic the Gathering has lasted this long is why we have a game like Lorcana.
Right.
And that's where, when you look in hindsight, oh, of course these cards are going to be worth a ton. But like, just the scale of printing is massively different.
So we are a bunch of dinks who treat this as like a primary hobby, right? And so the price point that we're talking about collecting at is different than a lot of other people's. So even when you're talking about it scaled down, you're not talking about like box quantities. Even when you're talking about like few packs here and there kinds of things, those are great to like augment starter decks and stuff like that. But when it comes to being able to like flesh out a collection full of staples, it's hard to do it that way. So
yeah,
the singles route is such a good route.
So I think from a collector's perspective, right, my personal aspect is similar to Michael's. I focus on the game. I want to be able to play the game. So my first objective is to make sure that I have play sets of everything. Mm-hmm. And so when I first started in chapter 3, I think I had ordered 2 cases of chapter 3 because chapter 2 and chapter 1 weren't available at the time.
So you're just going to go all in on deck construction in chapter 3.
I think,
which was a good place because it was introducing locations.
I think my general thought was also from an older Magic background where anything that you buy that was newer, you could generally trade for older stuff because people that had the access to those cards had extras, but they didn't necessarily have the budget or desire to spend on the new cards all the time. So I figured if I got 2 cases of chapter 3, that I could then throw all the extras into a trade binder and start knocking down some of the chapter 1, chapter 2, just through trades, which ultimately sort of ended up happening, right?
I was going to ask, like, how was your going from
So chapter 1
Magic
ended
to
up
Lorcana?
chapter 1 ended up being mostly pretty easy because after I had showed up, it was maybe a couple of weeks after when people realized, myself as well, that, oh, this guy is committed to like trying to do the game, that the community, a little bit smaller at the time, came together, and a lot of them brought their extras, including rares and legendaries. And so we just kind of went through the binders, and it was like, okay, like pull whatever you need out. And it was like we pulled whatever we needed out, which at the time was every uncommon, every common, right, in play sets, quite a few rares, etc. And then it was like, okay, like what do you want to pay for this to a degree? It wasn't market value. It was definitely discounted because at the time he was like, I just want other people to play. I have these cards, and the value was suppressed even then for singles. So it wasn't like he was giving me a ton of value, but there were certain things like I was able to buy a couple of Rapunzels, things like that, which were slightly discounted at the time, which was fantastic to be able to do that. And then for chapter 2, I got really lucky in that one of our LGSs, for whatever reason, just has an unlimited stock of chapter 2. Like, I don't think they've run out yet. So I don't know whether they just have a really nice relationship with their distributor or something, but I was able to
I'll have
pick
to
up.
get that information from you after the recording.
I was able to pick up just box after box after box using the BOGO program. That we don't need to expand on that, but I know that you understand what I'm talking about. And my goal at the time was I had already pulled an Enchanted from chapter 3 with 2 cases, right? I was able to get an Enchanted there. So that was kind of nice. And I had this sort of loose goal of like, it'd be nice to just pull 1 Enchanted from every set. So when I was going through buying box after box after box of Bloodborne, because it's what was available, I was striking out hard. So it wasn't, I actually ended up, when the set champs for set 3 had come out and they did that re-release of chapter 1, that's when I was able to actually pick up enough chapter 1 in sealed quantities to be able to open chapter 1 Enchanted. And it wasn't until like 2 months later that I finally got my Floodborne Enchanted.
When I entered the game was right around that set 3 set champs release. So everybody had restocked. And so I kind of got lucky where I was able to sell a couple Magic cards because I had some extras, and I basically was able to fund the Lorcana habit. I was able to buy a case of first chapter was available to me. So I bought that, opened an Enchanted, sold that to a friend, re-rolled that into a case of chapter 2. Like, was able to pull an Enchanted from that, traded for all the stuff that I was missing from set 1 and 2. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm in it for 2 sets, so I'm going to just pull the trigger, buy this set 3. And then, I was able to pull an Enchanted from that. Cool, awesome. And so that kind of set the tone that it was like, okay, one case, so four boxes, 1 Enchanted. That's what I'm looking for. That's my spend. That's my expenses for each set. And then set 4 came around, and I bought a case and 4 packs, no Enchanted. And that felt really bad, and that threw me into a spiral. And then
you were existentially spiraling.
So it was around that time I met you. Met you, joined your community, and it was
community.
It was Tyrone Bigums. It was, hey, does anybody else know a store that has a pack, like has a box? I am going to pay an exorbitant amount. I realize it, but I need to pull this Enchanted.
And I think the frustration with opening packs to try and build a collection is that it's on opposite ends of the spectrum. it is the most fun way to build a collection. Like I would never encourage somebody to not crack packs, right?
Right.
But also at the same time, it is going to be the most costly version unless you somehow have the most luck humanly possible
We
in
know
order
those
to open.
people with hot hands.
There was one box in particular. I think there were 3 boxes or 3 packs left, something like that. And the employee asked, "Oh, do you want me to open another one?" And I was like,
I remember
"Absolutely,
this.
I want you to."
I
So the
remember
other guy who
this.
bought just after me was like, "I'll take those packs and I'll take a couple more from the box that he just opened." And he pulled 2 enchanteds to my 0. So
It was
did
2
not-
enchanteds out of like 6
Yeah,
packs.
so it was the
packs.
last 3 packs that he got the enchanted, and then it was his first 3 packs that
Yeah.
he sniped the enchanted, or
Absolutely.
you didn't grab the right packs on that
right,
one.
right. So not always the luckiest, but that's fine. So
It was
out
pretty
of
iconic though to see happen.
oh well, because it's a member of the community and it's a friend.
And we love him.
You can't be upset that somebody else opened a bunch of enchanteds. It's fantastic.
Not even a little. And the very same thing happened to you 2 months
Yeah,
later.
we don't need to go into that.
will go into
I'm
that.
actually more curious to ask Michael, how many boxes? It was set 4, right?
Set 4,
would
Ursula's Return.
How many boxes did it take for you to pull that enchanted?
Too
I
many.
think it ended up being 8.
I
So
got you beat. 8 boxes. So
Yeah.
real quick, Britt,
Yeah.
what's your box count for opening an enchanted for a set?
What
How many?
how many boxes do I chase to get the enchanted?
What was the driest spell? Have you opened an enchanted from every set? I guess that I should
No.
start with.
Oh,
that.
actually, I've opened 2 Mauis. I traded one. So here's the thing. It evens out because I did not open a single beast in 6 months. And I opened a Maui that was the last one that our friend needed for a collection of first chapter enchanteds. And I traded her for beasts. And I was like, the universe provides, baby. Because beasts were like $60 a pop. They were higher than that, probably even. It was like a rough market. But out of 2 is Floodborn. I haven't pulled anything out of Floodborn. Inklands.
I thought you had.
What would I have pulled out of Floodborn?
Did you not get Mal?
Mal is Inklands.
Oh, you got the Inklands Mal. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Mal was on opening night. I had not opened an enchanted from the time I started playing in December until Inkland's release night, and had made not the joke, but had made like the manifestation into the universe where I was like, I do not care what my look looks like. I don't care if I never pull another enchanted. All I want is Mal. All I want is enchanted Mal. All I want is enchanted Mal. And let me tell you this story. Super relatable content. So we had ordered 2 boxes. We split a case with the besties and a Trove, I think. Like I had just randomly come into a Trove. Oh no, somebody grabbed it for me from Downtown Disney. And Matt, I was like, I'm going to open this Trove while I wait for one of our friends to get off of work who was running late. And I'm just going to open the Trove as a little treat. It's just going to be a little treat. And I get like 6 packs in, and Matt's hand like snakes in from the side, and he like plucks 1 pack out of the stack. And I like, anyway. And he was like, 1 pack? You can't spare 1 pack? And I was like, in fact, I can. I'm not like that big of a brat. And he cracks the pack and he goes, I need a sleeve. And I was like, there's no way, my guy. There's no way. And he was like, there is a way. I need a sleeve. And I like gave him a sleeve, and it was Morph. And I was like, oh, that's cool, little flubber guy.
Yeah, the morph enchanted is awesome.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm glad that's your enchanted. I am manifesting that I get Mal. And after everybody had gotten home from work and stuff like that, we're like cracking. There is something about the drop rate of enchanteds in Inklands that has not been achieved again since, because we had another couple sitting across the table from us, and it was just like Robin Hood, Sorcerer Hat, like it was just going, and I was like, wow. And then the Robin Hood, something else, and I'm like cracking packs, and Matt's like handed it. I was like, "You're sorting. I'm opening," and he was like, "I'm just gonna open a couple of packs." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna be a jerk about it." And of course, his little hand sneaks in. He grabs a pack. He goes back, and he stands up and backs into the corner. And he was like, "I need a sleeve." And I was like, "There's no way. There's no way." And he like looks at me, and I was like, "It's the Mal." I was like, there's no way it's the Mal. You opened my Mal. You snaked your little hand in and grabbed and sure enough, puts it in the sleeve, hands it to me, and it was my Mal. And I was like, good, done. All I need in the world. And I still have her, and she's beautiful, stunning, gorgeous. I love her.
So out of curiosity, is he always allowed to sneak his hand in and just grab a pack now?
Yeah.
I mean, with that kind of luck, right?
I mean, technically,
with that.
in the state of California, half of the packs are his, but he is very generous about letting me have the first look at a lot of our sealed when we're opening in bulk like that, which is very kind.
Do you know what your box count? Because that was
the
Blake's
original
question. Your rough box count from when you started playing to Inklands, right? Because that was when you said you hadn't opened an Enchanted until then.
I think I have had. No, it's hard to tell because of the packs and stuff like that. I don't know what my rough box count is. Probably like, oh man, I don't want to admit to this on the internet. It's not like dozens. It's probably like 4 to 6 boxes of first chapter, because we got some for Christmas and we have given them as gifts and stuff like that. And then Floodborn is probably a bit less than that. I think we did like 3 boxes of Floodborn.
So
well, that's why you
9-ish.
But that's why you haven't ordered one. No, I would say it's just the set, right? So you order like you went through 8 boxes for set 4 to get
Got
one.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
And
So you'd
my
say
my rate is higher than yours, unfortunately. Like, not to flex, but I pulled Mal. We pulled Mal and Morph out of
A Trove in a box.
right. I pulled a Maui. I had a minor meltdown the week of set championships, the first set championships, where I was just trying to get a deck to pop off that was not popping off, and pity bought myself some sealed and took it home, and that had the Maui in it.
so you bought a treat.
It was little treat culture. Yeah, I bought myself a little treat, and it had a Maui in it, and then I'm trying to think of what else was pulled. I pulled a wall recently.
Enchanted.
Yeah, one of my 2
Badanon.
enchanteds from chapter 3 was a Cusco's Palace.
Yeah, it's cute. It's really pretty.
I think we all get it. We
Yeah.
all understand.
So I think that my total box count is probably probably under yours.
Okay. I mean, but if Blake's original question was just per set, I'm the reigning champion until Blake reveals his number. I'm the reigning champion at 8.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah,
So,
it's a bad gold medal to win, but it is all yours.
Hey,
Oh no.
it's better to be first at something than second at everything. I don't really.
No. As previously discussed, I chased Floodborn
Yeah.
for the longest time. So ironically, a couple of things to kind of revisit. For chapter 1, I think Maui is my actual chase, right?
Yeah.
Like with my love of the Moana movie. I mean, clearly because there's no hey in it
Yeah.
for an Enchanted. Maui would be my chase. And so I haven't been able to open that. You, of course, open 2, but then you lament about not opening your beasts for chapter 2.
I didn't
So-
open Diablos either.
So when I first started the game,
Yeah.
that same weekend, I think maybe it was one weekend later, I had actually looked at the singles and I had identified that Beast was going to be very significant, especially for that metagame.
Oh, for sure.
And I went out and bought foil beasts, a play set of foil
You
beasts.
told me about this.
Yeah. And then I think I proceeded to open another 11 beasts chasing, but I opened 12 boxes of Floodborn before I finally got the Maleficent from that set.
Wow.
So yeah, I was not happy. I was getting those boxes at a good price.
Yeah.
So, and they were the oldest thing that was really accessible and available at the time.
Yeah.
So I definitely was able to fill in my chapter 2. I think I had to go and get some of the chapter 1 stuff afterwards. But since then I've pretty much been up to date, but I also, for chapter 4, I was able to get 2 cases because we were able to pre-order a case. I had my wife order a case as well, on my behalf. So I picked those up. And then after that one, I figured, okay, I've got enough trade stuff. I'm ready to go. Since my objective is to be competitive, be able to play whatever I want to play, but then also, probably slime some things out. I decided this set that I wanted to focus more on just the playset aspect of things. So I've ordered a playset of the cards. So I think the deal that I made was for super rares and under, because I think the legendaries are just a little bit harder to make sure you can guarantee, especially when you're opening massive packs. But it also increases the value of those playsets exponentially. So my idea was, having watched the last 2 sets, set 3 and set 4, as they released, watching those markets and the fluctuations and how they start really high, move down pretty low, and then start to creep back up as people start playing with. My objective was, I'll just knock out all the super rares and under in one complete play set through a third-party vendor, and then I would specifically identify what I believe to be the playable legendaries were, and then I would try and, you can never time the market, but you try and time the market for a bottom. And so, as we've discussed, I was able to I identified Clarabelle, I identified Mufasa, and I identified Prince Naveen. Mufasa and Naveen were obviously like easy ones to identify, as far as like these have strong constructed play abilities. I think the Clarabelle kind of caught everybody. And as of today was the buyout. She got up to 45 and then kind of came back down to 30. So I did very well on those enchanteds, and I'm just kind of waiting for the rest of them to come back down, because I don't think anything else is extremely playable. The Robin Hood long term probably has some playability.
The Red Robin Hood?
Yeah, what he does is significant.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's enough card support for it right now. Yeah. I'm excited to see what people brew with him, but I don't see his card value shooting up to $45 overnight. So I was able to knock out those legendaries. So as far as my being able to play, in the next constructed I decide to play in, I have access to everything that I need. And so that was my strategy for this set, because again, I wanted to prioritize being able to play and play test. And part of that is because I do have a competitor ticket to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure I had access to the cards as soon as possible so that I could start play testing with those cards in order to make quality decisions, rather than waiting until 3 weeks where I'm finishing up play sets.
So you didn't open any boxes and of set 5. Are you still chasing enchanteds, or are you not part of the enchanted chase? Or if it comes, it comes? Like, what's...
So I think
they're so low right now.
No, I'm definitely in. Right. There's no doubt that I'm in. I made the decision that, being able to play was the objective originally. And we had talked about this in a previous episode where I wasn't really intending on going to the Lorcana Gonza. I wasn't intending on buying any of the product. And then D23 came out, and I bought a lot of those. So that like really sort of dictated what I did with that extra money, that I was like, this is so great. I'm saving all this money by not buying 2 cases of this product. But also at the same time, I had kind of made the decision that I would just wait for that sort of mass drop to happen, right? With the last 2 sets, boxes have dipped to about $100 or below. I figured if I had everything that I needed to be able to play, then I could go ahead and just buy boxes at that point in time to my heart's content, or until I pull that Enchanted. So I think I'm still in on the goal of pulling an Enchanted myself. But I'm just doing it more in a cost-effective way. I'm going to wait for the price of those boxes to go down to where they're more affordable before then purchasing them to chase that Enchanted.
The case that I allowed you to open that was fine, right? You did open an Enchanted Revive,
Yeah. She's so pretty.
right? But does that mean
Congratulations.
I have yet to open an Enchanted and I'm allowed to buy more boxes?
Oh my god.
Wow.
Or does that mean...
So interestingly enough, as you were leading into this question, I thought what your question was going to be, does that count as you opening an Enchanted?
Well, it is a 2-part question,
But it's the reverse aspect. It's like, does it count as Blake opening an Enchanted? No, because I'm not the one who owns that Enchanted.
Okay.
So from that perspective, I would have to say that yes, you opened an Enchanted. You just happened to let me do it. So for the viewer, what we did is he had a case of Shimmering Skies that he was just going to open, but because Michael and I are old hands at TCGs, we understand that like the concept of variance when opening booster packs just doesn't really exist in that hard sense, that like you're not going to get all Naveens as your legendaries.
Womp
So from that perspective, he's like, I don't really care who opens it. It just needs to be open. So I decided I would record it or stream it for our friend group, just so that everybody can enjoy us opening it up, which in the future we might actually still continue to do, right? We're exploring that space as to like, just because it's fun to open packs.
It is.
And it's fun to watch your
and
friends
now
open
it's a
packs.
write-off. Just kidding.
So
And for me, as long as it's not my 8-box Ursula hands and somebody else is going to open the Enchanted,
well, yeah,
then,
I think
then that's the goal for me.
I think that definitely leads into the story that Britt wanted me to tell, where for this last set championships at the last one that I was registered for and playing, I was able to top 4, so I was able to get that Enchanted Ursula. But then that same day I went and I think with my prize pack, I don't think it was my prize packs. I think it was our entry packs. So our LGS, the way they run it, you got a pack of Chapter 2, a pack of Chapter 3, and a pack of Chapter 4 just for registering to play.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. You
Yeah,
know,
it was great.
Everybody walks away with a little bit of something, even if you didn't end up winning the tournament.
Yep.
But then they also had a very limited amount of Chapter 1 available, and I think you could buy 1 pack of Chapter 1. So I, of course, went and bought my 1 pack of Chapter 1. I think I was able to get another 2 packs of Chapter 2. So I had a pack of Chapter 1, 3 packs of, not even 3, I think it was 2. I had 2 packs
I think
of
you had
Chapter
2, 2, and 2.
And then, I think it was like 1 of Ursula's Return and 1 of the Into the Inklands. So I opened them in reverse order, didn't really hit anything out of the Chapter 4 or Chapter 3. But then second one, and I should also preface this. I have only, up until this point, I have only ever opened an Enchanted from a sealed case to a degree, except for my Chapter 1 and my like Chapter 2, but they were sealed boxes, right? Like I've never done the like what I call opening in a wild, where it's like you just show up at the store, I'm gonna get a pack or 2 and rip an Enchanted. I've never done that. And I tried, right? Like I was getting real down on myself for a while, being like, well, it's never gonna happen, just open a box. Which is why I typically will purchase boxes. Yeah.
Culture.
And so I'm sitting there at the table with you guys. The finals is going on. We're all enjoying ourselves. I think you guys were opening Bloomborough because, I mean, that set was amazing as well from a Magic perspective. And I'm
It was
like,
a dump
ugh.
for drinks.
And I stop, and everybody's kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on? And I was like, it's happening. And you're like, well, like it's happening, like Enchanted happening. And I was like, yeah, it's happening.
My question is always vibes, or did you see something and you're like, I saw something, and I was like, okay, let's go.
So then while the finals is going on, basically everybody gets called over to the table. So everybody that's in the store, including the employees, like one of the employees stands up on a chair with his phone out to be able to record this. And I was able to open, let's see here. It was chapter 2. What did I open? I don't even remember at this point.
Was it your girl, Snow White?
It was. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
it was Snow White because I remember being
Snow
like
White.
super, super excited about the fact that it was Snow White because obviously for chapter 2, that's the one that I wanted to be able to open.
Oh my gosh, that's right, because I remember now what your other one was.
Yeah, and I was so elated.
Spoiler.
So elated to be able to do that. Yeah. So then I opened my 1 pack of chapter 1 and in rotation. So I usually do a really good job of being able to flip the card over or the entire pack over and go card by card without revealing anything. And so for the chapter 2, I had gotten to the foil slot and gotten up and saw the enchanted. So I knew for a fact that it was an enchanted. It wasn't just vibes. And that's how I was like, okay, I know.
Yeah.
Whereas for chapter 1, I think I had turned to say something to somebody.
And you saw the corner.
And I saw like the glint of it and I was like, oh my. And everybody's like, wait a minute. Like, no way you're like just seriously ripping pack after pack.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, for chapter 1, I opened Belle, which interestingly enough was my second Belle.
Oh.
Of chapter 1, I have only pulled Belle Enchanted. I've only pulled 2, but
It's a good problem to have. She's pretty.
yeah, not complaining. I think personally, and not just because I own them, but I think that she should be the chase of the set. She's a traditional classic Disney princess and highly playable. That's my problem. Like, I think the Elsa just doesn't have enough. See, I can also make that argument. I can understand that. It's the Elsa that doesn't make sense to me, other than the fact that I think she was probably the most playable one from chapter 1 and chapter 1 alone. So that
Enchanted Elsa is gorgeous.
oh,
It's that collector thing. Like, she's just so stinking pretty.
I don't disagree with that, but I would also say that the Belle and the Aurora are also just as pretty.
Yeah.
So I think it comes down to that classic playability versus non-playability aspect of things. And I think that Belle has kind of proven the test of time now that she is playable, especially when you include Dime into the format. So
yeah, they even talked about that in the Lorcana panel at T23. But also, I think that the impact of chapter 1 is that there were a few different art styles, and the one that kind of like bore out as the one that had the most value. You've seen enchanteds that are sort of more visually similar to the Elsa than they are that like 2D cartoony style, like of the it's not like a wood block, but the Aurora has like a really distinctive art style. And I think Belle and Aurora are a little bit more similar, and then Elsa is just sort of more like a traditional Lorcana card. Maybe not.
Well, that probably would just be more, I'd say, the traditional art style of the era, the original. Because I understand what you're talking about with that Aurora, where it's that very storybook vibe, right? Where it's coming off the page rather than. But
Storybook's a good description.
Yeah. So it's interesting, but I mean, I'm not complaining, that I pulled 2 Enchanteds. So my luck
my way.
Right. And so I think that actually ended up being the contributing factor as to why you were like, oh yeah, you absolutely should be opening my case, because like you have the hot hand right now, and it should equate to opening an Enchanted, which I did. I opened an Enchanted for you. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think our group, I've been seeing a trend in our group. I don't know if everybody's noticed it or not, but I think that the group has a hot hand, maybe like 3 or 4 hot hands in the group. And
it rotates.
But we've seen it jump now. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Somebody was the hot hand in set 3, and then we saw it jump to somebody else in the hot hand in set 4, and then she got cold in set 5, unfortunately, right?
We're gonna
So-
manifest good pulls.
So, but it's not my time yet. It's not my time yet. That's
not-
what we figured out. It's
Okay.
right.
There you
right?
go. You're just waiting.
right.
just
It's
Biden.
it's not
Waiting.
it's not my volunteer shift yet. Right.
Your biannual volunteer shift.
Yeah, so what you're telling us is that you're not going to have hot hand until 2026.
Oh God.
I hope not.
You're like, oh man, now I have to rebalance my hobby budget.
But maybe that's part of it. Maybe the hot hand is karma, and I didn't put in my shifts, and now that's the Michael tax that I have to pay.
So now I'm going to be opening every case you buy for multiple sets. Okay.
I mean, until you go cold, until proven otherwise, it's a better strategy than me opening the case.
Which I find to be really interesting because, again, 12 boxes of Floodborn. Like, I would not consider myself the luckiest person pulling anything.
But that's the
and
hot hand
I-
jumping, right? Like you were cold then, but you're hot now, right? So
We'll see.
The box thing is just I have tried to wean myself off of that being the level of treat that I need to be engaged. I've gotten really lucky with Troves though, right? And so like that's just like my little bit more I can tell myself that I'm like on a better, being more reasonable. I'm like, I'll buy my singles, and if I need a little treat, I'll do a little Trove. It'll be fine. Do you know that if you give yourself a little treat 3 times, that's the equivalent of buying a box?
Yeah.
Yeah. Math has
just-
never been my strong point, unfortunately.
for me, I get the appeal of the Troves, but I just don't need all the extra stuff. Every time you buy a Trove, it
I'll
comes
take
with
it.
the dice. It comes with the I just don't need all that kind of. I don't want all the extras, right? I don't want to pay for all the extras,
Right.
So-
I mean, I do like giving like boxes and accessories away, except the dice, because I am pretty fond of that dice. Those dice. And I will take them if you open any more of them. But my legendary hit rate in Troves, especially Shimmering Skies Troves, is not bad. Like,
okay, so you're saying the hot hand's about to jump?
no. I can't. It'll spook it.
Oh, okay.
It'll
All right,
spook it.
Right.
You can't look at it, and you have to hold the box up, and you have to whisper what you want.
So,
Look, we're not
and this-
superstitious, just a little stitious.
so you have me laughing quite a bit because you were going over the accessories aspect of Troves. So there's a couple of interesting stories regarding Troves. I've had this thought in the back of my mind, and I thought maybe it was going to be this set where I want to spend like 2 cases worth on just Troves alone and see what happens, right? So literally just buying, what would it be, like 16 Troves, something like that, 16
Jesus,
to 20
I'm
Troves.
faint considering
So it
it.
would just be one of those interesting. But then you were also talking about like the extras and like, oh yeah, Michael, just buy a Trove and give the extras to other people. So I have this story where I was actually buying a chapter 3 Trove because I wanted the
this is really
dividers.
sweet. Yeah.
But I in addition to the dividers, I really wanted a second set of that chapter 3 Trove dice because I only have 1 set of them. And so I had gone and bought an extra Trove, and as I'm standing there at the register, husband Matt comes up and he's like, hey, you want them dice? And I literally just without even hesitation, I just ripped the thing open at the register and hand him the dice, even though I really wanted the dice.
sweet.
I think
So sweet.
the part that really sort of like hurt just a little bit is I saw him 2 weeks ago, and he has so many. He's got an entire box of those dice, and I was like, I gave away my second set that I was like super
I
excited
know.
about.
But if you ask for them back now.
Oh no, he absolutely would. But he was actually trying to buy me a sealed set of dice, and I was like, "Don't worry about it. Like,
a sweetheart.
I made the decision that I made, right? Like, so.
it's
But
because-
that's
okay.
indicative of our community.
It fully
really
is, and indicative of you. And it's also indicative of Matt, because Matt is a long time Warhammer 40K player. And so Matt takes his dice very seriously. And Matt also wants stuff to match. So he needs bulk stuff anyway.
Well, I mean,
get it.
that's the completionist or the collect. Like, we're in collectible card games. We're all gonna have our quirks, and luckily I've been able to avoid. Hey, no Troves. Like, if I go down that rabbit hole, I'm gonna want a trove from each set, and then it's just gonna
Yes, in fact,
spiral.
I
You know,
do.
right?
In
You're
fact,
gonna
I do.
spiral. So I think we all kind of have that. Everybody's got their own little thing that they like to do.
So you have 0 troves.
I have 0 troves.
Do you have any unopened troves, like as a collector's aspect?
No, they don't. Here, hold on. This concept of I'm gonna hold on to this for some other day, much better impulse control than I have. If I'm not tearing it apart with my teeth in the front seat of my car on the way home from the LGS, then I have already exhibited more control than I have on average.
So now we know where she gets her luck from. Car packs. They're a real thing. They're a real thing.
True. It's true. Disney packs are also. There was a run when I was with the besties out in the park where there was just like sort of like an irresponsible amount of pack hunting going on. But the reason it happened was because there were legendaries in every run of packs. I was like, there's no way. Either they're sending boxes with 12 legendaries in it to the parks, or so many people are rotating through Lorcana sealed that we're just hitting these boxes like at the right point every time we show up. But it's like J pulls one, N pulls one, I pull one. Everybody is pulling them. And I was like, this is like a statistically unusual day.
Yeah, can confirm.
Yeah.
You guys were taking my legendaries.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Every time I went to downtown Disney, it was like, wah, wah, every time.
Yeah.
But that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have what I have, and you have what you have.
We had a great time talking about putting together collections and what our experience was when we were starting to get into this hobby and build our collection. But alas, all good things come to an end. And we're just going to wrap up for tonight.
Yeah, it's getting pretty late.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that next time we get together to have a conversation, we're going to be talking about the results of the Toronto DLC. Yeah. And then maybe getting ready for Vegas and what that looks like and how the testing and the meta has shaken up maybe.
Right. I think we're going to try and talk, because DLC Toronto at this point in time is still sort of the older format with the Bucky errata now in place, but it's not really going to be a good predictor of what is going to show up in DLC Vegas. So I think we're going to try and talk about how does one approach a new metagame and how does one predict a metagame as it's changing.
Sounds great.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for hanging out with us.